Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is the Spectator Bag, style number 9796, but it was known as 9795 only in the 1987 catalog. Little fun fact for you. This bag came to me pretty dry and a little bit misshapen, but overall in really wonderful condition. I bought it off Instagram from a fellow coachee who wanted to rehome it, and upon doing some inspections, I found that it just needed a bit of a clean and maybe some reshaping. So I went ahead and started off with my vacuum. And I went ahead and just fast forwarded this vacuuming part to save your ears. And I find the vacuuming kind of boring anyway. So this I put at 8 times speed. But I really like this little vacuum to get into all the little nooks and crannies and crevices to just make sure I'm getting all the big pieces of dust. And anything that the vacuum didn't pick up, I'm using my suede brush here to thoroughly brush through the interior of the leather to try to lift up any of the caked in dust or dirt or anything that the vacuum might have missed, and going over it with a vacuum again. Then I used my trusty thread zapper to get any of the loose threads inside the bag. I like to work on the inside of the bag first because I will eventually stuff it to maintain its shape. So I want to make sure that the inside is nice and clean before I stuff it and forget about it completely, because once I finish with the outside, I'm not going to lie, I get kind of excited and forget about the inside of the bag. So I make sure to do that first and just make sure the interior is nice and clean and looking spotless and there's no little hidden stains or anything like that inside. So I use my Angelus suede cleaner in a foam pump and just work that in with my small horsehair brush here, and just working a section at a time and making sure to get under the flap of the pocket as well. And some of these bags have these flip out flap, and it's important to get under that part because I find there's a lot of dust and dirt and just years of love hiding under there. So I always like to go in there really thoroughly and using all the attachments of my vacuum. And then I use my thread zapper again around all the outsides of the bag. As you can see, this one had quite a lot of loose threads, and you just want to make sure that those are all tidied up before you use the bag. So I just go and take my time throughout the whole thing and ensure that there's no little spots that's missing. And I like to use my horsehair brush to kind of sweep off any excess debris that might have stuck onto the outside of the bag before I go in to clean it. So after I give it a little bit of a light brush just to brush off that dust or dirt, I found out that this one had Anchor hardware, which is super cool. And that plus the creed, I know that this bag was made before 1994. And then I used my acid-free paper and I crumpled it up to get the shape the way I want it to. As you can see here, I like to squish the bag and shape it as I go. And I use the paper in a way that it helps push out the leather that has kind of been squished in. So I'll pack it in really tight where I want there to be more of an expansion in the leather, and then I won't pack it in really tight if it's fine the way it is. But I kind of have to play with it a little bit, squishing it down here and there, rearranging the paper, that kind of thing. And once I'm happy with how the shaping is going to be, I will go ahead and clean it. But it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice to get it the way you want. So don't be discouraged if you're trying this yourself and it's not working right away. So now, using the Lexol one with distilled water with a horsehair brush, I am just scrubbing the outside of the leather clean. And this part I didn't speed up because I actually find this to be really relaxing, and I love watching other videos of bag cleans and just seeing all the little suds being wiped away clean. So I did leave this for you in the regular speed. If you would prefer videos of the cleaning without me talking behind it, then please let me know. I'm more than happy to try to edit more ASMR type videos, but I don't know what it is that you want until you tell me. So please let me know if that is something that would interest you. But as you can see here, I just go through every panel of the bag and scrub it clean and use my clean microfiber cloth to wipe away the excess suds. And I don't let the Lexol one and water mixture sit on there too long because I don't want that to be the main moisturization. I want this to be the cleaner, so I do it in smaller sections. And in some areas that I find might need a little extra love, I will go over it again really quickly with that same mixture in little circular motions. and then just continue on to the other sides. Make sure you're getting under the flap and in the corners as well. It's really easy to forget when the bag is closed after it's been stuffed, but under the flap is definitely important to give it a nice clean. And I want the leather to be cleaned evenly, because I think that it kind of dries out the leather a little bit. So for when you condition it, it kind of conditions evenly as well. So I always like to have all the sides nice and clean. But these are all just things that I like to do personally and things that I've learned along the way. I like to remind people often that I am not an expert. I am definitely a hobbyist when it comes to bag restoration. I only started doing this year, and I learned everything I know through YouTube and forums and Facebook groups and asking people who are much more knowledgeable than me. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt. And if you have any different suggestions or any tips, or if you are a more seasoned restorer, I'm always open to feedback and suggestions and questions as well, because when I answer questions that I don't know the answers to and I go and search for the answers, I actually learn something along the way. So I will try to answer your questions the best as I can in my ability, but just know that I am not the be all end all to restoring vintage Coach bags. I am definitely just doing this for fun as a beginner. I just really enjoy doing it, and it just brings me so much joy, and I just find it really peaceful and calming to do. And so I started making content about it, and I love making content. So it kind of happened to be this way, but I'm definitely in no way an expert. I am just doing this for fun and learning along the way and sharing all the things that I learn with all of you. And I really appreciate everyone who reaches out to me and says that my videos helped them have the confidence and gain the confidence to try to restore a bag on their own. Like, that's honestly my whole purpose of doing this. Like, if I can do it, you can do it kind of thing. I've learned everything off YouTube, like I said, and off TikTok and Instagram and just other creators who have been doing this for much longer than I have. And I think that is such a fun hobby to try out. And there's nothing wrong with failing. Like, I do this knowing that I could definitely mess something up, and I'm really happy that I don't. But at the end of the day, I hope that this can inspire you to try something new and to not be afraid of failure and just get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And if there's something that you've always wanted to try, like restoring Coach bags, for example, for me, then why not try it? I've been watching videos like this like ever since I think 2020, when videos like this start first coming out, and it's kind of crazy to me that I'm making content myself now. Like, I never would have thought that I would have had the courage to do so, and now it's become a very big part of my life and very much an obsession and a passion of mine. So it makes me really happy when people say that my videos have helped them, or they've learned something, or you guys have gone ahead and bought your own bag and restored it successfully, and all those stories just make me really happy. So I really appreciate you for being here and supporting the content and watching and commenting and liking and sharing all the videos. Like, it really means a lot to me. But anyway, I digress. As you can see here, I'm just continuing to clean the bag on all sides and just ensuring that I'm not missing any little spots. And I do like to go over certain areas more than once, just if they need a little extra care or if there's some extra grime buildup or anything like that. I do mainly work with black or dark color bags. I don't really do light or really colorful ones, just because that's not really my style in terms of my everyday wear, but I do love looking at them and I do think they're beautiful. So I think I may try to branch out a little bit more. I do have a couple of red bags that I would like to fix up, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of intimidated. So they are at the back of my restoration pile. But I find black bags are just a lot more forgiving to work with, because it's really hard to mess up in my opinion, but I have come across painted bags as well. So not all bags are created equal, I guess. But I went on after I finished cleaning with the Lexol 1 and distilled water. I used my leather CPR here to massage into the leather. And this is my favorite product to use, especially for black bags. If it's a lighter color bag, I will use Bic 4, because that is what other Coach restoration people have recommended to use for lighter colors, like my bone or my British tan or anything like that. But leather CPR for black is absolutely great. I find that it just soaks into the leather really well. It hydrates it perfectly. And it is a tried and true vintage Coach Restorer go-to conditioner for a reason. That was a mouthful. But yeah, it works really well. It's also a cleaner inside, so it's double as a cleaner and conditioner. So for bags that don't actually need that much of a clean, I will just go ahead and use the leather CPR. But for this bag, I decided to give it a little bit of an extra clean as well. And then as you can see here, I'm just using my fingers to get into all the little seams, because sometimes the leather CPR or any conditioner you use will pool up in these areas, and you don't want it drying like that because then it'll kind of be sticky, and you don't want it pooling up like that in the edges, because that is where lots of the dirt and grime will get stuck if it is all sticky in there. So I just want to make sure to massage it really well and get into all those grooves with my finger, and sometimes even a microfiber towel. I will go in and wipe it out because I don't want that excess product in there. So I just always like to make sure to get every little edge and every little corner that I can and massage it well. And as you can see here, I'm kind of restuffing the leather as I go because I want to see how the leather moves. Sometimes I find seeing how the leather is helps me identify if it's dry or not. So if the leather is more soft and supple, then I know it's more on the moisturized side. And if it's really dry, it kind of seems more stiff in appearance. So I like to kind of move it around just to do a little bit of investigation as I go along. And as usual, using my horsehair brush to thoroughly brush through all the little corners and get the product evenly distributed all throughout. I think it's really important to continue to shape the bag as you go, because then you can see which areas need a little bit more love, a little more moisturization, a little more shaping. And it's really important to use as much moisturizer as you see fit. Just remembering that leather is a lot like our own skin when it comes to conditioning. I'm honestly so bad at moisturizing my own skin. Like, it's so funny and ironic to me that I've created a hobby and passion for myself, or I guess started a passion hobby for myself that consists of moisturizing leather, because I'm literally the worst person ever at moisturizing my own skin. So it's funny to me that I will spend hours and hours doing it to bags, but not myself. So this is a little reminder to myself to take care of my skin better and use moisturizer as much as I do on my bags. Anyway, back to the video. So I always like to make sure that I'm not leaving too much behind. As you can see here, there's kind of a lot left over. So what I'll do is I'll take my hand to try to scoop it onto my hand and spread it around to the other parts of the bag so that it doesn't go to waste. Because if it is caked on like that too much, then like I said before, it may leave like a sticky residue. So I always take my horsehair brush and buff it out after to get rid of that excess leather CPR or whatever conditioner I'm using, to ensure that the product is well distributed throughout the leather rather than just sitting on top. I don't want it to give that little sticky feeling. That is never nice. So as you can see here, the horsehair brush is doing its job, just making sure all the little spots are evenly distributed and conditioned, and it's sinking into the leather like it's supposed to. And you can even see in the video here the difference it makes in the leather almost immediately. And the buffing process is actually really important. I do a lot of buffing in between conditioning, a lot of it off camera. I always forget to film because I find it's really repetitive. So I will just kind of leave bags that I restore on my table here. It's just in my office, and every time I walk by it, I will just take my horsehair brush and buff it. And a lot of people say, you know, buff it until your arm feels like it's going to fall off. And I can confirm certain bags that are really, really dry, you really do need to do that to ensure that the product is well distributed in the leather. And so the buffing really helps kind of get it in there and just have it like really penetrate those leather cells, I guess not a cell, pores. Because it's leather, there's actual pores in there, and that is where the conditioner is getting in to maintain that soft feel all over. And as you can see here, I'm already using too much on the back. You can see the white, but it's all good because I've done this enough that I know I can just use my hand and spread it around the sides and other areas that I haven't conditioned yet. I just love the after of a before and after in all Coach restoration videos. It is so satisfying to see the dry leather. It's all like crackly looking and dry, and the colors all faded, and then you see the after where it's just looking pristine and shiny and back to its regular self. And I think that's something so beautiful about this community and about this hobby that people just love to see. People love to see something that's kind of been forgotten or not cared of, and then seeing all this love and effort put into it to have it come back to its original self, or even better maybe. Because one really good thing about Coach and vintage Coach bags in particular with this kind of glove tan leather is that the patina is part of the beauty. The scars, the little marks, the scratches, all of that is just part of the story of a bag, and I love that so much. I think that is such a wonderful way to look at life in general, and it's a great metaphor. And for me, who I just love metaphors, I'm a therapist by trade. Like, my studies were in social work, and I love talking about life and about just transitions and life changes and all these types of things. And I think this is such a great little reminder that a little love and care and just some time and effort put into something can have such a big, huge difference over time. And that's the big thing, is you put all this care and all this work and effort and products and money and all these types of things into this bag, and the after is just so satisfying. And unfortunately in life, it's not always that way. It's not always so apparent. Sometimes we mess up, sometimes things don't go as planned, or sometimes the things that we invest in don't really turn out the way we expect. So I think there is something beautiful about a Coach bag like this. I'm getting all like deep for no reason, but this is just how I get when I ramble. So if you're around here enough, you'll hear me talk about this kind of thing a lot, I'm sure. But I think it's really satisfying to see something really, the product of the after actually being really satisfying and really good. Because not, like I said, it doesn't always work out that way. And I feel like with bags too, there might be bags in the future I restore and the after isn't as crazy big and obvious and satisfying as I want it to be. But again, I think that's just like a great lesson on life in general. Sometimes things just don't work out, but it's really, really, really nice when it does. There's just like this good, fuzzy, warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside when it just looks so good after. Here you can see I'm using the styrofoam to help that flap shaping on the top. So now that I've fully conditioned it, I used this as an extra little bit because the flap on these bags are usually stretched out a little bit. They're not super tight over the whole bags. They have like a little bit of give. So I like to use something to smooth it out on the top to make sure that it will stay in that shape when I take the stuffing out. So I have it stuffed with the paper, and then I use that styrofoam on top just to have like that smooth area to have it bulging out, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then you can see here I'm pressing in all the areas to just make sure that it's not bulging out too much in the front and back the way that it was before. I want it to still maintain that nice square shape, but still have that smooth top. For this bag in particular, I think I just did 1 or 2 conditioning sessions. I actually can't remember, but it depends on the bag. Like, some bags really don't need that much conditioner, and I'll just do 1 round of conditioning after I clean it and then just brush it every once in a while, like I said. And some bags are really, really dry and need multiple rounds of conditioning and brushing, and then conditioning and brushing, just back and forth and back and forth. So I think for this one, I just did 2 in total with maybe 24 hours in between. And that is a question I get really frequently. How long after cleaning do you condition? How long after conditioning do you brush? So this video is like a pretty good representation of what that looks like. So I will clean it with the Lexol 1 and wipe it clean, and I will condition it right away. I don't really wait for the bag to dry completely after the Lexol 1 because I'm not soaking it. I'm not dunking it. I'm just cleaning it with the horsehair brush on the surface, and then I'm wiping it clean almost immediately. So the moisture that's left over from the cleaning solution is really just on the surface there, and it's not penetrating through the leather. So I don't find it a problem to condition right after. So I will just clean it, wipe it clean like I am with the straps here. And it's important to give the straps some love as well. And then I will just go in right away with the conditioner, massage the conditioner in. And like you saw in the video, if there's like that white residue on top, then I will wipe that clean. Sometimes with a microfiber towel, if I've really used too much conditioner, it's really not sinking into the leather, or if the leather just doesn't need the conditioner, then I will wipe it clean either with my hand and apply it somewhere else, or with a microfiber towel if there's nowhere else to apply it. And then I will use the horsehair brush right away to buff it very lightly to remove that excess product from the creases and the edges and the seams of the bag. And then I will continue with the rest of the bag and just finish up conditioning everything. And then I will give it one good light buff all around. And then I will let it sit for a little bit and buff again when maybe an hour or two later. But like, I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it sits on my desk for a day or two and I completely forget about it. So it's not really like any rule in my opinion. There's no like you have to do this within an hour. So I will just leave it, and then when I remember, I will go through and buff it again with the horsehair brush. And then if it needs conditioning, I will condition it again, and again go through the steps of massaging that conditioner in, buffing lightly with the horsehair brush to ensure that all the product is evenly distributed, and then repeat that process again and again until the bag is looking good and fresh. And then I will do one last buffing just for good measure, and then I'll be done. And here you can see in the straps, I'm using my microfiber towel to get into the holes of the strap to make sure I'm getting the leather CPR that is gotten in the hole there out, because if it stays in there, like I said before, it's gonna be kind of like chunky and dry, and it's gonna pool up in there, and we don't want that. So I use my fingers at first to try to get that product out, and then I use the microfiber towel again to kind of rub in between to get that out, and then use my horsehair brush to buff the strap. Then I let it sit for a little while, like I said before doing that whole process over again. And then a day or two later, I make sure that the bag is nice and dry and conditioned to the level that I want it to be. And then I take my horsehair brush and give it one last buffing. And this is never like a perfect science, in my opinion. Like, it looks really great now, but then it could be sitting in my room for a little bit, even if I'm not wearing it, and it dries and then I need to condition it again. So if you find that your bag needs more love after you think that you're done with it, don't be discouraged. That happens to me too. Oh, and also that happens quite a lot. That's the thing about these vacuums, they're very top heavy. But yeah, so I would just make sure that you're keeping an eye on things and seeing how things are. You can even see in this video, the back of the bag could have probably used a little bit more conditioner, but I filmed this before I went on my trip and I didn't really have the time. So I just ended with 2 rounds, but I probably could have used a third. And then I take out the stuffing here to see how it's maintained its shape, and it's looking pretty good. And make sure that it's standing up on its own, no matter the way I turn it. And then I just inspect it throughout to make sure I'm not missing any little spots or anything like that. But that is basically how I clean and condition a bag. I didn't do anything with the hardware this time because it didn't need it, but if it was to need it, I would use Brasso and give it a little shine. But there are other videos that I do that in, so if that interests you, please go ahead and check them out. Thank you so much for watching the video and hanging out with me until the end today. It really means a lot to me. So for those who stuck around to the end, here is a close-up of the bag. It's looking absolutely refreshed and amazing. Just look at that leather, look at that shine, and I wish I could show you how soft this is through the screen. The leather is just so smooth to the touch, and I'm just absolutely in love with it, and I'm so happy to have it in my collection. If you stayed till the end, please comment your favorite color so I know that you made it, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.